Today we will be talking about William Shakespeare's play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. In this play, Theseus, the Duke of Athens, is preparing for his marriage to Hippolyta, the Queen of the Amazons. To celebrate his marriage, Theseus plans to have a festival. However, before any entertainment begins, Aegeus, an Athenian nobleman, marches into Theseus's court with his daughter Hermia and two young men, Demetrius and Lysander. Aegeus wishes Hermia to marry Demetrius, who loves Hermia, but Hermia is in love with Lysander and refuses to obey her father. Aegeus asks for the full penalty of law to fall on Hermia's head if she will not obey his wishes and marry Demetrius. Theseus tells Hermia she has until his wedding to consider her options. He warns her that disobeying her father's wishes could result in her being sent to a convent or even executed. Nonetheless, after they all leave Theseus's court, Hermia and Lysander get together and plan to escape Athens. They plan to leave the following night and marry in the house of Lysander's aunt. They make their intentions known to Hermia's friend Helena, who was once engaged to Demetrius and still loves him even though he split up with her after meeting Hermia. Hoping to regain his love, Helena tells Demetrius of the elopement that Hermia and Lysander have planned. On the night of the escape, Demetrius goes into the woods to find Hermia and Lysander, and Helena follows behind him. The forest or woods that Hermia and Lysander, Demetrius and Helena run off into is the home of the fairies. The fairies seem to be broken up into two groups. One group follows Oberon, the fairy king. The second group follows Titania, his queen, who has recently returned from India to bless the marriage of Theseus and Hippolyta. Oberon and Titania are at odds over a young Indian prince, or changeling boy, given to Titania by the prince's mother. The reason Oberon and Titania are fighting is because Oberon wishes to make the boy a knight, but Titania refuses to give the boy to him. Seeking revenge, Oberon sends his merry servant Robin Goodfellow, or Puck, to acquire a magical flower, the juice of which can be spread over a sleeping person's eyelids to make that person fall in love with the first thing he or she sees when they wake up. Puck obtains the flower, and Oberon tells him of his plan to spread its juice on the sleeping Titania's eyelids. Oberon also has additional plans to use the magic flower on the four young Athenians that are in the forest. Having seen Demetrius act cruelly toward Helena, Oberon orders Puck to spread some of the juice on the eyelids of the young Athenian man. Puck finds Lysander and Hermia, thinking that Lysander is the Athenian Oberon was talking about. Puck afflicts him with the love potion. Lysander happens to see Helena upon awakening and falls deeply in love with her, abandoning Hermia. As the night progresses, Oberon learns of Puck's mistake and orders Puck to correct it. Puck attempts to undo his mistake, but both Lysander and Demetrius end up in love with Helena, who believe that they are mocking her. Because both men now love Helena, Hermia becomes so jealous that she tries to challenge Helena to a fight. Demetrius and Lysander start to fight over Helena and agree to duel for her love. However, before any fighting can take place, Puck confuses the young Athenians by mimicking their voices and leading them apart until they are lost separately in the forest. This gives him a chance to correct his mistake. As all of this confusion is happening in one part of the forest, Oberon watches his plan to trick and humiliate Titania unfold in another. When Titania wakes, the first creature she sees is Bottom, the most ridiculous of the Athenian craftsmen, whose head has been transformed into an ass's head. Titania falls in love with him because of the love juice, and tells him he will stay in the forest with her and the fairies will take care of him. Oberon watches Titania make a fool of herself with Bottom and obtains the changeling Indian boy. After that, Oberon decides that Titania has been tormented enough and reverses the effects of the love juice. Titania cannot figure out why she loved Bottom and she and Oberon make up, thus ending the feud between the fairies. Puck eventually gets the young Athenians in their proper places and they all go to sleep. Puck then spreads the love potion on Lysander's eyelids, and by morning all is well. Theseus and Hippolyta discover the sleeping lovers in the forest and take them back to Athens to be married. Much to the dismay of Aegeus, Theseus decides that Hermia can marry Lysander and Demetrius will marry Helena. They will all get married with Theseus and Hippolyta that night. After the group wedding, the lovers watch Bottom and his fellow craftsmen perform their play, a fumbling, hilarious version of the story of Pyramus and Thisbe. When the play is completed, the lovers go to bed. The fairies briefly emerge to bless the sleeping couples with a protective charm and then disappear. Only Puck remains to ask the audience for its forgiveness and approval and urge it to remember the play as though it had all been a dream. Now that I have given a brief overview of the play, I want to focus on the effect the fairy world has on the mortal world of Athens. It seems like the balance of the fairy world in the woods directly affects the way people act in the mortal world of Athens. I believe this happens because when the fairies get wild and trick each other, their magic flows into the mortal world of Athens, causing people to act on emotions. It seems like when Shakespeare wrote the play, he wanted the fairy world to be the exact opposite of the mortal world. They are almost reversals or reflections of each other. We have the mortal world of Athens that is governed by rules and regulations, and the fairy world that runs off of magic and emotion. As I stated before, it seems like the feud in the fairy world directly affects the actions of our characters in the mortal world. Even though the fairies do not show up until Act 2, the feud between them seems to be evident from the beginning. It seems as if the feud between Oberon and Titania has been going on for a while. One of Robin Goodfellow's first statements in the play confirms this theory. He states at the beginning of Act 2, "The king doth keep his revels here tonight. Take heed the queen come not within his sight. For Oberon is passing fell in wrath, because that she as her attendant hath a lovely boy stolen from an Indian king. She never had so sweet a changeling, and jealous Oberon would have the child, knight of his train, to trace the forest wild. But she perforce withholds the loved boy, crowns him with flowers, and makes him all her joy. And now they never meet in grove or green, by fountain clear or spangled starlight sheen, but they do swear that all their elves for fear creep into acorn cups and hide them there." This speech from Puck shows that Oberon and Titania are already fighting over the boy and have been for a while. This is where I get the theory that the balance of the fairy world directly affects the mortal Athenian world. Because the fairies are fighting, it is causing our Athenian characters to act on impulse and emotion. It causes Hermia to want to defy her father, and her father to want her to pay the maximum penalty for it. This means she could possibly die for disobeying him. It causes Hermia and Lysander to run off to elope, and for Helena to tell Demetrius of the plan in hopes of winning him back. Instead, he runs off into the forest after them, and Helena follows him because she still loves him. We know what happens after that, but it seems that all of this rash action of emotion comes from the feud between the fairies, because once the feud ends, everything is set right, and they all live happily ever after. It seems as though when the fairies are angry, excess magic runs rampant and it affects the Athenians. However, once they stop fighting and a truce is called, everything falls into place. Hermia and Lysander end up together, and even though her father is not happy about it, he does not want her dead anymore. Helena ends up with her love Demetrius, and they are included in the group wedding. All is set right, and everyone lives happily ever after once the fairy feud ends. Therefore, as you read A Midsummer Night's Dream, try to read critically and make inferences about why certain things happen. Try to find some meaning or theme in the play that does not stand out. Question why things happen, what could have caused certain events, and try to think about the play in new ways. This will enhance your reading experience and it allows you to be creative with your thoughts. It is also a good way to find new meaning in the play that you did not notice before.